The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Monday, the 25th of April, 2016, are currently trading with gold at $1,237.77 an ounce, silver $16.97 an ounce, Texas crude $43.73 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently at about 471 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1846, the Thornton Affair, also known as the Thornton Skirmish, Thornton's defeat, or Rancho Garecitos, was a battle between the military forces of the United States and Mexico along the Rio Grande. The Mexican forces defeated the Americans in the opening of the hostilities and was the primary justification for U.S. President James Polk's call to Congress to declare war, the beginning of the Mexican-American War. Today in history. In recent news, the U.S. is ranked 41 out of 180 countries in the Reporters Without Borders World Press Freedom Index, though the organization notes that the U.S. has moved from 49th in 2015 to 41st this year. However, the U.S. government's war on whistleblowers and the country's lack of a shield law, which would allow journalists to protect confidential sources, does maintain a negative view of U.S. press freedom. Obama's Justice Department has cracked down on reporters in an effort to prevent leaks. It has also set a new record for withholding access to government files under the Freedom of Information Act, despite his calling for a new era of openness on the first day of office. And photojournalists in 2013 from several major news organizations criticized the Obama administration for denying their right to photograph or videotape the president while he was performing his official duties. Finland, the Netherlands, Norway, and Denmark all ranked in the top 4 spots, while Syria, Turkmenistan, North Korea, and Eritrea are in the last 4. 2 Swiss pilots, Bernard Piccard and André Burchard, are taking turns flying a solar-powered airplane around the world. The plane, the Solar Impulse 2, took off from Dubai, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, in March of 2015. It made stops in Oman, Myanmar, China, Japan, and Hawaii. The aircraft did encounter a few turbulences along the way. It had to land in Hawaii in July and was forced to stay on the island after the plane's battery system sustained heat damages on its trip from Japan. The team was delayed in Asia as well when attempting to fly from Nanjing, China, due to unfavorable weather and a damaged wing. A whole month later, when better weather conditions arose, the plane left Nagoya in central Japan for Hawaii. Solar Impulse 2 will make 3 more stops in the United States before crossing the Atlantic Ocean to Europe or Northern Africa, according to the website documenting the epic journey. This is Rick Brody with your lowdown for April 25th, 2016.
Good friends, good evening and welcome here on this, it is a Tuesday night, the 26th of April, 2016, another big primary night here in these United States, especially here in northeastern part of the country. I think we got Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island, and Connecticut. So, that's the Northeast, all right, where I'm coming to you from, and that would be me, Tom Kiley, who is speaking to you live from Brooklyn, New York, as I do on Tuesdays and Thursday nights here on the great Logos Radio Network. Good evening. Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to INN World Report Radio, International News Net World Report. We've been doing this radio show for, I guess, over 8 years now here on this network and its predecessor. And before that, we ran a national television show on the Dish Network satellite system on their free speech TV channel for about 7 years. So we've been at alternative media for about 15 years now. And it's what we do. It's important. It's necessary. It is having an impact. People are waking up all around the world. The miracle in electronics, be it the internet and publishing or video or audio like we do here on this show, is allowing people to communicate in much better ways. And the monopolies on mass communication heretofore are breaking down, and people have a lot more choices. And within those choices now, the ability to produce your own media has become, more affordable, within the reach of a lot of people, and that's what we do. And it's really having an impact. And I also have to thank you, the INN World Report listening audience, because we do this together. Without you being out there, there's no show, there's no need for a show. And most importantly, there's no need for our guests to take the time to come on and join us and talk about the issues that they do. So that's what we do. That's what we're all about. Primary night tonight. The phone lines are open. Let's open them up right now. And I'm going to hurl them open there. I wish I had a sound effect for this. Okay. And you can call in 512-646-1984. We hopefully are going to be joined by Scott Creighton from the blog American Everyman, and that's over at willielohman.wordpress.com. And if you have not been there, I urge that you take a look at it. It's a very, very interesting site. Another alternative media person, starving as well, not getting paid for it. But virtue is its own reward, they say. And certainly when you're trying to get truthful information out in a world that is increasingly being filled with lies and lies and lies. I don't know, maybe it's always been that way, but it's just getting crazy and quite noticeable, because until you can get educated, and we've been raised to believe that process of getting educated we can rely on our educational system for that, our schools for that, our ministers, preachers for that sort of thing, our elders even. But you've got to know the information before you can teach it. You've got to be aware of your surroundings and the situation that you're in before you can teach it. And that, unfortunately, is not the case with the way things really work. Probably hasn't been that way forever. Who knows? But now we're getting the opportunity to share information. And it's just, as that happens, as is often the case, so often the case, when, when bad people, when nefarious people have a successful model to rip people off, and that sort of, and it doesn't even have to be nefarious people, even people in business, when they have a successful model, a lot of times, maybe they stumbled on it, whatever, maybe they developed it, but they hang on to it until it's dead, until it's no longer useful. I say they sink their teeth in it and they go down to the bottom. The corporate media, once you, I should say this, I should backpedal for a second. Once you start telling lies, you have to tell more and more lies to cover the previous ones. And it gets to a situation that I refer to as a reality shift. Okay, we're living in a great reality shift. And check it out. Just there's so many ways that we can look at that. We're living in a great reality shift where the story, the fable, the fairy tale that they want everybody to believe has gotten so encrusted and they've had to glom on more and more and more to it that it's becoming absurd in and of itself. It's crushing of its own weight. And we can see this all around us. And to watch the mainstream media, to watch these people with a straight face telling you about Syria when you maybe know more about the situation than they do, because you've informed yourself, because you've listened to programs like this, because you've gone to websites like Global Research, or you've listened to so many of the guests that we've had on our show and read their columns like Pepe Escobar and his Empire of Chaos. And I could name hundreds of people that have been here to help us look into things more deeply, because they've done the research and we cross-reference them, we cross-check them. But what do you think? 512-646-1984. Give me a call. How many of you feel that the people in the mainstream media that look at you with a straight face and tell you all these lies about Syria and Iraq and Iran and Libya and all the rest, how many people feel like they're just bald-faced liars? They know they're lying and they get paid a good salary to lie, and that's why they get the big bucks so they can convince you. And as opposed to how many of you think they're just really, really stupid? That you, the average listener to this program, know a lot more than they do on so many given subjects. What do you think? I think it's a sort of a combination. I think the higher ups, the more well-paid ones, the people that run the show, they probably have a good idea. But, I look at Rachel Maddow, I look at Megyn Kelly. They say stuff with such a straight face and such conviction, right and left. Rachel Maddow, Putin's invasion of the Crimea. Putin's invasion of the Crimea. That is not only is it a big fat lie, okay, but it's a dangerous one. It is an inflammatory one. It is one that is trying to get you ready to go to war. Okay? If you believe this kind of stuff. The Crimean Peninsula has belonged to Russia since our country was born, if not earlier. Okay? And then, a little more than a half a century ago, 50, 60 years ago, a Soviet premier named Nikita Khrushchev gifted that tremendously strategic piece of land to the then Soviet Republic, the Ukraine. Gifted it to them. They didn't ask the people. These are Russian people, Russian families going back generations. Okay. And then the premier, just gifts this place to the Ukrainian Republic. All right. No plebiscite. No asking anybody. But they all right, fine. It's still part of the Soviet Union. Then comes the breakup of the Soviet Union. And now this formerly Russian speaking, ethnically Russian strategic place, okay, goes along with the new republic, free country of the Ukraine. And then we break up that government. We cause a coup. We destroy a legally elected government right before they were going to have elections. Okay, that shows you the perfidy that, we didn't even want their elections to happen in 3 months because we knew that our guys weren't going to win. So we had to do the coup before the election. And the people in the Crimea said, we ain't having any of this. We're not having none of this. Okay, we're not having double negatives here all over the place. We're not having any of this. Okay, and they decided to rejoin Mother Russia. That is Rachel Maddow's Putin invading Russia. They had an election and they decided to go peacefully, not a shot fired. Okay, and that's an invasion by Putin. Crazy. I can go on, but we got callers here, so let's go to Chris first. Hi, Chris. How you doing tonight? Let me try one more time. There we go.
Thanks.
Okay, Chris. How you doing tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for calling. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I'm very excited about the waiting for the primary results. I think it's going to be crucial in the Democratic side tonight.
I think it could also be fairly crucial on the Republican side as well if they don't mess with the voting.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm following them both, so that's where I am tonight. And I agree with what you said about the media. You asked how we felt. I think they've had to dumb themselves down, maybe intentionally or maybe not. But I don't get anything off of TV anymore. I get everything off the internet now. So,
which is great, right? And it's to what I was saying before. You have the choice now. You've got so many opportunities to find information. You go out and you find your own stuff. If you're like me, in this case, because of this program, I got people from around the world that send me emails and articles to look at, and then you find a website that's pretty good. You put that in your favorites, and you keep going, And so it's people are waking up really fast now, I think, because of that.
I agree with you, Tom.
But I tell you, Chris, I go to the mainstream media now, but it's the elections and stuff. And, once you've been away for it for a couple of years, you go back and you look, and it's shocking how dumbed down they are, and they're still trying to keep people suppressed with knowledge as well. I can't believe how far out there they are. Putin's invasion of the Crimea. Crazy.
Right. And my dad grew up speaking several languages, including Ukraine. So I followed it. He lived in Eastern Europe as a young man. And so I follow this a lot. And yes, I mean, it's 90-10 in favor of Crimea should be Russian, I think.
Yeah. And like we've got military bases all over the world. The Russians had Sevastopol there, the Navy base with an Air Force base there. They've had that by treaty for a really long time. There was no invasion. They were there by treaty.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. There's been a complete – this whole thing about Ukraine being where America should be taking a stand is insane.
It's insane and dangerous. Hold on if you like, Chris. We got a break, and then we've got Mark also. Tom Kiley, INM. We'll be right back just after this.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
All right, good friends, welcome back. Some great music. That's the Godfathers, by the way. I like them. A really good group, in my opinion, from Great Britain during the sort of end of the New Wave era. Late 80s, I guess. maybe early 90s. They, another one of these groups that only had a couple of albums. Their first album, The Godfathers, I thought was one of those albums where just about every song on it was good. I've been using several of their songs. I don't know, maybe I've used 4 or 5 of them by now. Back when I first started doing the bumpers, I used one of their great songs, Birth, School, Work, Death. It was a great song. It was a complaint about the drudgery of the way the oligarchs are running things now. Birth, school, work, death, and they shouted out. And then there was another good one called "'Cause I Said So." That's they used to do. A really, really talented, good group. I'm sorry to see they didn't really, go much further. But and then I found some newer stuff from them, which is that. But anyhow, we had Chris on the line and Mark also, and neither one of them are there now. So Mark, if you're still listening, please call us back. You get right on. And anybody else who'd like to join us, 512-646-1984. I expect to be joined by our good friend over at American Everyman, Scott Creighton. He was all scheduled to come on the show, and then a friend called him for a helping hand, and he's not sure what exact time he's going to get back. But he's got a cell phone with him. He's supposed to check in with us, so maybe we'll have him on that way. But and he's just been knocking him out of the park. Please go and take a look. Willy Loman. Like the play, right? What was it? Death of the Salesman, Arthur Miller, was it? WillyLoman.wordpress.com. He had, I think he posted this yesterday, he sent it out. I'm on his feed, so I get these things sent right into my email every time he puts up a new post. But just a smashing video by Steve Colbert. Was it the Colbert Report? Just a really, really great video on what he calls the oilgarchy, right? And he goes through the history of, how oil got to be big oil. And let me look it up for you right now. Hold on. And just a really, really powerful the Colbert Report. Not Stephen Colbert. Anyway, I'll get it for you in just a moment. I'll get the website for you. But really, very, very, very important. I thought very well done, and very, very informative, not just in the United States, but also overseas. The Rothschilds, the Royal Dutch Shell Company, the British Petroleum people, all working to get this, resource out of the ground, and then, sort of creating these just a tremendous amount of money and everything else. How big oil conquered the world from the Colbert Report, I don't know how you pronounce it, but just a great video. And just all you got to do is go to willyloman.wordpress.com. How big oil conquered the world, and it goes into pharmaceuticals. Like they're using petroleum for medicine and everything, and it's just really, really something. So, anyhow, we're going to have Scott come on. We'd like to have him come join us. In the meantime, phone lines are open, 512-646-1984. I'd like to finish up while I'm waiting for somebody to call to explain to you again this bit about Russia supposedly invading the Ukraine, the Crimean Peninsula, which Russia proper had gifted, without asking the Russians who lived there, gifted to the Crimea, the Crimean, which was a republic in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. It was actually part of Russia also. Okay, I've said it many times on the show. You got to know your history. Okay, if you go to the map, go to Google if you want, and Google Maps, whatever, just scroll over to, it starts usually in where you live, and just, zoom out until you get a little bit higher up in the sky, and then zoom over to Central Europe, Eastern Central Europe, and you'll see the Ukraine there, and it's right up against Russia, and it's in between Russia and the Eastern European countries, the Hungaries and the Polands and the Austrias and stuff like that. Okay, so this country sat in the intersection of so many different empires. Okay, the Russian Empire, the Habsburgs, right? The Austrians, the Hungarians, the Poles, the Germans, the Prussians. Who else? Who else got in there? And then, from the south, you had the Turks, the Ottomans. All right. So all of these countries, at least, they all came, the Ukraine sort of sits right in between them all. So different empires have controlled that part of the world for different periods. Pretty much, I guess, since Catherine the Great, or, around the time of our American Revolution, the Russians went in there. You can read about it in the history books and find out how they took it over. And it's pretty much, back when we were taking this continent over from the people who lived here, right? And it's, no one's contesting anymore that, the state of affairs here. So during World War I, the Germans hyped up the Ukrainians and tried to get them into a nationalistic fervor to break off of Russia because it's a very rich place. The soil is like black earth there, grows great food, the breadbasket of Europe, of certainly of the Russians, and a lot of minerals as well. And then they had a lot of manufacturing there. So the Germans wanted to break that off of Russia and have it as a vassal state, like a supermarket for them, especially during World War I. The British Navy had Germany blockaded, okay? So, it's a long story, but the Germans helped Vladimir Lenin get into Russia to finish the Russian Revolution. They made a quid pro quo with him. They gave him money, and they said, as soon as you get there and you finish that revolution, you pull Russia out of World War I, which Russia did, and then the Germans took their Russian prisoners of war who were from the Ukraine region and pumped them up as nationalists and said, we're going to give you a new country. You go run the hell with the Russians, and, you'll be our friend and we'll help you, and like that. All right. And then, of course, the Germans lost the First World War, and afterwards, the Russian Revolution was turned into a civil war, and the Bolsheviks won. Okay, so the Ukrainians didn't get to keep their country for very long as an independent country. But at least the Bolsheviks said, hey, you know what? We're going to honor your will for independence, and we're going to make you an independent republic within the Soviet Socialist republics. Okay, and then the Germans came back during World War II, and they went to their same people. This is only 20-some years later, right? They went to the same people who they ginned up to have their own country. And those people said, hallelujah, the Germans are back. They put on Nazi uniforms and they formed Ukrainian brigades that went and joined the German army and went and fought in their own country. And they hunted down and rounded up and murdered many, many, many Ukrainians who had sided with the Soviets and who were Jewish, all right, rabidly. So much so that there's at least one or two history books that I've read that claim their rabidity even made the SS sick, how brutal they were. And then, of course, the Red Army, you don't learn this in the history books. And I'm not a big fan of the Red Army. I'm a fan of the truth. I'm a fan of history, okay? The Red Army got off its back after initially being stunned and betrayed because Hitler had made a non-aggression pact with them, which he broke. And they turned the German army back, to almost 200 divisions of it, in a massive retaliatory force that the Germans totally weren't expecting. Nobody was expecting it. And as they pushed the Germans back out of Russia, the Nazi traitors Ukrainians went with them. And after the war, we took a lot of them back over here. These are people who should have been swinging from the gallows, okay, at Nuremberg. And we took them over here. Why? Because we like that anger that they had against Russia. And someday we were hoping to cause a revolution over there. Someday we were hoping that, right after World War II, they really didn't know how all these Eastern European countries were going to end up. So we had covert programs in all of them to cause instability, to cause revolution against the Russians. And we were hoping it would happen in the Ukraine. Some 30,000, I'm told, Ukrainians were killed during this sort of covert war. And now it's finally coming to pass. Now that the Soviet Union's gone and the Ukraine is an independent country, okay, finally. And now we've got these Nazis. Now they're probably their grandchildren now. But the pedigree is still there. And they're wearing Nazi uniforms and their flags look like the Nazi flags and all the wolf hook and all this stuff. And Victoria Nuland and the neocons, and don't ask me how that works, where the neocons are Zionists. Okay, what they're doing with Nazis and reviving Nazism in the heart of Eastern Europe, that's just crazy. But there it is. And the rest is history, all right? It was not an invasion. But your news media is telling you that. Anyhow, I'm going to be right back. Give us a call, 512-646-1984.
This tropical fruit does wonders for your heart, skin, and hair. Plus, it kills harmful bacteria and promotes oral hygiene. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and in a moment, I'll let you know what that healthy something is.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Coconut oil has long gotten a bad rap. Although partially hydrogenated coconut oil is unhealthy, virgin coconut oil can do wonders for your looks and your health. Let's start with the antioxidant effects. Much like vitamin E, coconut oil helps exfoliate and repair damaged skin. It stimulates thyroid function and converts cholesterol into anti-aging steroids, lowering the risk of cancer and heart disease. Coconut oil also promotes weight loss. By boosting your metabolism, it makes you feel full longer. Finally, it's a natural antibiotic that can help prevent tooth decay. So let's all go nuts for coconut. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
All right, good friends, welcome back. Tom Kiley here, INN World Report Radio, Tuesdays and Thursdays on the Logos Radio Network. And anyway, I'm motivated tonight to talk about the way reality is shifted, presented to you in an increasingly shifted way, because knowledge is power, and in a theoretically democratic society, or a society with democratic principles where we can elect representatives and so forth, you need to be informed to make informed choices, to get informed results. Okay? I think government is informed, but it's informed with information that's different than we're informed with, or disinformed with, maybe would be a better way to put it. And, just example after example, and now they're coming fast and furious. The Vietnamese, and they're deadly, many of them, right? The Vietnamese attacked our Navy in the Gulf of Tonkin with torpedo boats. That was a lie. They knew it was a lie, but somebody was itching to go to war against the Vietnamese. And once the big boys say something's true in the military, it's kind of hard to go against it. And the rest is history. Lyndon Johnson sends 500,000 troops in there. Major humanitarian slaughter, disaster. We lost 55,000 American soldiers' lives, and that was a big trauma for us. The Vietnamese lost, I don't know, I've seen reports of between, 2 to 6 million people in a country that had something like 39 million people to it altogether, okay? You don't really hear about that side usually of our military adventures around the world. Based on a lie. The 2000 election, Al Gore lost that election. Big lie. Okay, big lie. Media went along with it. Reality shift. Okay, and the New York Times had to report it was a lie. They thought, they were so confident. The New York Times I think CBS, Washington Post. They put money together to count the votes themselves. They went to court. They got the right to do that. They counted the votes, and they found out, if the votes had been counted by the law in Florida, then Al Gore would have been the winner. And how are they going to tell you that? Does anybody remember that on the front page? No, because it was on the back pages, and they didn't even bother to mention it on the back pages until November of 2001. Months after the election, a year after the election, and a couple of months after the attacks of September 11th. Reality shift, deadly lie. Okay, and then 9/11, the attacks. Physics took a holiday on that day. All the rest of it, and it just keeps going. There's an agenda behind all of this stuff. Okay, when you are not informed, then you're open. You can be manipulated. You can have fear pumped down your head, and you'll believe stuff. If you ask me personally, I think that television, radio, film, video, this is still a very, 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 relatively speaking, brand new phenomena on the human psyche. Okay. When I was a kid, they were just starting with television, black and white TV. It was like a little pie plate. I used to watch the Yankees on Long Island in my neighbor's basement. It was literally like a Sara Lee tin pie plate. You were looking at it on the little screen there. But it's magic. It's like magic, and you need a lot of money to do it, and it's authoritative. Listen to the old radio. The original television broadcasters were all old radio broadcasters. Okay? And check me out. See if I'm wrong. But go back and look at the Edward R. Murrows and the young Walter Cronkites and people like that. Listen to the way these people talked. A very, especially to women even, and in Hollywood too. There was a very sort of a patrician way they talked, and they had authority in their voice, and they enunciated very clearly, and they had a cadence all about them. This is because radio itself was a pretty new phenomena that came about when? When did the radio really get going? In the 1920s? The teens, after World War I? So before you had voice amplification, before you had radio, before you had television, any of that stuff, for somebody to get their point across to a large audience, you had to use your body like a bellows, okay? You had to project your voice. theaters were designed to project the voice. And to do that, you had to enunciate very clearly in a very certain way. Look at your old politicians. Go to YouTube and look at some FDR speeches. Look at the way the politicians talk. Very strong. And there's a cadence to it. And this is because this is how it went. This is how it went. Now, people who speak to a crowd, okay, go back to Greek theater if you want. This is ancient in our culture, okay? But not everybody gets to stand up in front of the crowd and address them, okay? There's a lot of authority invested in that, okay? To get up on the stage, to be allowed to get up on the stage. How many people want to get up on? And even if half the people who wanted to get up on the stage could, they make a fool of themselves because they don't know how to talk publicly. You should listen to some of my early radio shows. It was ugly. Let me tell you. I've been at this now for 8 years. Hopefully I'm improving. But there is a lot of authority invested in somebody addressing the public, okay? In the old days, when there was no voice amplification, it was even more so because they sounded so authoritative. It was like the voice of God projecting to the back of an opera hall, with opera singers, the whole lifetime training to project their voice with no amplification. I don't know if you've ever been to an amphitheater before, but if you've ever had the opportunity to go to a real amphitheater, there's not many of them in this country, but in Europe there's a lot of them, the old Greek ones, and the Germans built a few, the Nazis built a few, but there's an amphitheater I used to go to in Heidelberg on the other side of the river. There were the early versions of raves at this thing. It was a relic from the Nazis. It looked like the Romans had built it or the Greeks had built it. Up on top of a mountain across the river, the Neckar River from old city Heidelberg. Beautiful place. And the students, there's like 3 old 600-year-old universities. The students on a summer night used to go there and they make a big bonfire and they put a big stereo system up in the playground. Anyway, at that amphitheater, I used to camp there. You could put a transistor radio down on the stage and you could go all the way up to the top steps and you could hear it fine because it was all built that way to project. And this carries authority. So what I'm trying to say is that, excuse me, television, radio, the magic of that is still a profound influence on people. And it is invested with authority. People are already just willing to believe what they're hearing because everybody wants to be on TV and it's only the chosen who are, So they take advantage of this to peddle their lies and everything else, okay? And this is what's happening, and it's controlled by the few. And this is why the alternative media is so exciting because we're breaking through that. We're challenging, and debate is the enemy. All right? It's been a one-way street. Now we actually have basically debate. And one of the really big new lies, relatively new, that is being peddled. It's just absurd on its face, okay? And I wanted to talk about this tonight. And let me preface what I'm about to say. Hopefully, many of you have been listening to me for quite some time. Give me a reality check. I am trying to always be a very fair person, a compassionate person, a balanced person, all right? I don't want to see harm come to anybody, all right? So I am not talking from a harmful perspective. I'm talking from a reality perspective because I think lying is very harmful. But we have this whole transgender agenda now that is, it's just really absurd. Really, really absurd. All right? Now, before I continue, I'll say that anybody who suffers from the feeling that they are, quote, trapped in the wrong body, that's an incredibly painful suffering, I am sure, okay? And my heart goes out to anybody who's suffering, any kind of suffering, and especially that kind, where you're trapped, you can't go anywhere, you feel, okay? It's bad, okay? The sources of that, we could talk about that too. But the solutions now that are being presented to the world for this particular type of suffering are, in my opinion, absurd and will only cause greater suffering. And I'll go into that a little bit when we get back. Tom Kelly, INN War Report Radio, right back.
Easy.
All right, good friends, welcome back. Tom Kiley, INN World Report Radio. Phone lines are open. We hopefully are going to be joined by Scott Creighton tonight. If not tonight, I'm sure he'll be on sooner rather than later. Great blog, American Everyman is the name of it. You can get there by going to willielohman.wordpress.com. And I was telling you earlier in the evening that he had a great, he posted a great video by James Covert from the Covert Report all about the oil oligarchy and how it got started. Just a fascinating. James just does incredible work. He's not been on the show for a while, so maybe I'll reach out and see if we can get him on. He lives in Japan, so he's quite a distance away. And also tonight we've got primaries going in the Northeast here, the Acela primary. They're calling it. Maryland, I think, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. That's big. Okay, Pennsylvania, I think, is going to go heavily for Donald Trump. And maybe Bernie Sanders. Hard to say. Bernie's, Hillary Clinton's got a lot of support with the African-American community. We'll see. So, anyhow, another round of primaries going on right now. I wish I could give you some information, but usually they end right at the end of the show. So I can't get to you with that. So let me go back, friends, this thing. And I'm prefacing what I'm saying here. I am so liberal that I'm liberal on most issues. Okay. Or true liberal. Okay. Not a pro-war liberal. Like these people have turned into. All right. I have compassion. And when I don't, I'm wrong. And I try to fix it. All right. And I try to understand people's problems, and I try to, if I can, help them, not make them worse, that sort of thing. And if a person is suffering from gender confusion, or they're unhappy with their body and that sort of thing, it's this very peculiar form of suffering. It's terrible. I feel horrible for them. I would like to be able to help them somehow if I could. But what we're seeing now by the same people who bring you all this other information that is just flat out wrong is a big movement to take this particular form of suffering and try to convince everyone that the way to help such people is to go along with their assertion, to take their view of themselves to the next step, which is not, I'm a man who's trapped in a woman's body, or I'm a woman who's trapped in a man's body, to take it to the next step and say, I am actually a woman, even though I'm in a man's body. Which isn't true. I mean, your body is what determines whether you're a man or a woman, a girl or a boy. Your chromosomes, X and Y. Right? What is it? I think the boys are the Ys and the girls are the X's. That's what it's on a chromosomal level, if there is such a word. That's what determines it, not what you think about it, not what you feel about it, but that. Okay, now I'm sure there are some people who, relatively rare, who have some physical characteristics in their, sexual organs of both. That's a special case. But even there, I think I don't think there's such thing as a third chromosome. And I don't think there's such thing as having half X chromosomes and half Y chromosomes. So even those people are going to have an overriding determination by the nature of their body. Okay. So this, the transgender agenda, and it's, I can't believe how this is going. And to just say that, up is down, down is up, black is white, white is black, green is blue, blue is green, the sky is green. This is, it's astounding to me, because it's just plain, first of all, it's not true. And, there's always been people who have felt this way. I believe it would be a small minority, a very small minority in the population. I drove a taxi in New York City. I saw people who tried to live this lifestyle out. Okay. And I'm told, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I'm told that some people, only want to do this to a point of appearing that way, but don't, want to relinquish their actual identity underneath it all. And some really want to try to do everything they can to act out the opposite. And I'm told, for instance, that the operative concept here is a term called passing, where somebody who is of one sex can actually pass and basically fool people, deceive people into thinking that they're the opposite sex. All right. And that's the goal for many people. And we're being told now that we ought to go along with this, and we ought to participate in this, because it's participatory, right? It's becoming participatory. And there's laws being promulgated now to make it, enforce its participatory nature. And I'm talking about bathrooms and stuff, right? This is crazy. It's just crazy. And this isn't a right thing or a left thing, although it seems like many on the left are infatuated with this. But what are we saying here, friends? That the human race has been wrong all this time to have men's rooms and bathrooms and women's rooms for as long as that we've had them? That we made a mistake? That there's no meaning to that? I mean, and girls' locker rooms and boys' locker rooms and girls' sports teams and boys' sports teams? That's all wrong? We should have never had that in the first place. Now we're going to fix it and change it? What? This is just nuts. It's crazy. And now you got Bruce Springsteen from my hometown in Freehold, New Jersey. Okay. I'm not going to go to North Carolina because they're saying that the men's room is for the men and the girls' rooms are the women's rooms for the women. I'm not going to go. Huh? What the heck is this all about? This is just nuts. You know, if somebody insists that they are Napoleon, they have convinced themselves that they're Napoleon. Do we all bow to them and say, hello, Emperor, how are you this morning? Can he go to the bank and sign his name on a check, Napoleon? No. And if he or she, because I've even heard of women who thought they were Napoleon, persists hard enough in that direction, they can be institutionalized. All right? Which, don't get me started on that. I think mental institutions are in a very sad state and have been for a very long time. It's a sort of a neglected area of healthcare, but that's a whole nother show maybe. But if you're a man who says, I'm a woman now, because I look like one on the outside, because I'm wearing clothes like one, because if somebody walked past me and didn't look at me hard enough, I could pass as a woman to them. So now I am a woman. That person could win Woman of the Year and has done so in certain circles. The Bruce Jenner. What is this? This is crazy. No, I don't want anybody to suffer. But if you think that the solution is to take, thousands of years of human history and say it was all wrong and turn it upside down and do away with women's rooms and men's rooms and women's teams and men's teams, and because you cannot change a person from being male to female, nor can you change a person from being female to male. You can't. What are you going to do? Get inside of every cell and, tack on an X to a Y chromosome and snip off you can't do it. You cannot. Not to mention uteruses and all the rest of it. It can't be done. But to say we're going to make believe, and to not even say we're making believe anymore, we're going to actually say that up is down. And that's the solution? No. And this is just out there. And no, I'm not being bigoted, and I'm not transphobic, okay, which is another absurdity, that if you are saying that reality is reality, that doesn't work. If you notice, there's no real debate going on here, right? It's a tour de force, okay? And the young people are, it's going to be nice to everybody, that kind of thing, And you can see it now. There's videos. There's people going out and interviewing college kids about this stuff, and they get very confused very quickly. A guy I just saw one yesterday, somebody said to me, an interviewer walks up to a college kid and starts asking them questions. If I'm actually a woman, what do you think? And it's clearly a man and the college kid says, well, that's how you identify. That's cool with me, as long as okay. And then the guy keeps asking more questions. It's actually, I'm a Chinese woman. And the kid goes, oh, well, you don't really look like one. You have Chinese parents or something, but that's what you want to be. That's what you feel, And then he goes and says, actually, I'm a 6'10" Chinese woman. And the guy's only about 5'9", right? Oh, but I said that's what I am. What's the matter with you? Why are you disagreeing with me? Kids people don't have the wherewithal anymore to say, wait a minute, no, the sky is not green. This is where all this is going. How are people going to sort out the real issues of life, real life and death issues? Not to diminish the importance and the suffering and the pain that a very, very small fraction of the population is going through with this. Not at all. I'm not making fun of it. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. If I could wave a magic wand, I would make it disappear. Or was that wrong to make it disappear? Now you're supposed to just go with it, maybe. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, it's going to get a lot worse if children are led to believe whatever they feel is what's the thing. Because apparently there are people who go through this gender confusion when they're growing up, and in something like 80-90% of the cases, it clears itself up all by itself. But what if somebody intervened and stopped it from clearing up and said, no, that's okay, go with it? I think you're going to have more and more people with this issue. I've given it a lot of thought, and I've got a very important question to ask you when I get back about this. And again, the haters, stay away, okay? No, I don't want anybody beaten up. I don't want anybody hurt any more than they're hurting themselves. And I don't want that either. Welcome back. Tom Kiley here, INN World Report Radio. Now, Scott Creighton was scheduled to join us tonight at the last minute. He had to go help a friend. I understand that, and maybe he'll be able to come on again, yet tonight. We still have a full hour left in this show. But it's okay because, there's something I want to get off my chest that I've been writing a lot about lately to several people that I correspond with. And it is the rise of the transgender agenda. And you have to be careful how you say that, obviously, because it's two words that sound almost the same. And I'm using it as an example of just how far things have gone in the reality shift in which we live, being driven by very powerful forces in the media and that sort of thing. Okay, I suppose even the legal system. Now, we've been led to believe that it is compassionate in this case, and maybe many others, to go along with somebody's false assertion that that's compassionate, right? To pretend that up is down or down is up because that's what somebody is pretending themselves. And rather to wake them up or to say, excuse me, no, that's not correct, that we're all going to have to participate in what is basically a deception, a lie, passing, whatever you want to call it. The truth is your chromosomes determined whether you're a male or a female. That's it. Now, heretofore, I suppose I haven't been to every culture on the planet Earth in all times, but I have been around. I've been to Asia. I've been to Europe. I've been to South America. I've been to Central America. I've been to Canada. Haven't been to Africa yet. Haven't been to Australia yet. But all the other continents I've been to, Antarctica, I don't think applies. But everywhere I've ever gone, and everything I've ever seen in history books and in old film and portrayals and so forth, it seems to be a bedrock principle of human society that you can most of the time generally tell whether a person has X chromosomes or Y chromosomes through the way that they dress and the way that they make themselves appear. Okay? And that's been sort of, it's like the yellow double line going down the road. Everybody trusts that that's there and it means something and that it's going to save lives. And it does. It saves lives every day. Once in a while somebody falls asleep, they get drunk, they lose control of their car. But generally speaking, it's an amazing thing when you think about it. The double yellow line down the road is a convention that everybody observes, and that's how things work. Okay? And we get around and all the rest of it. And so too, there's a convention, a human convention that, it's fair to be walking down the street, to look at somebody and to know what kind of chromosomes they have because they're telegraphing it to you in their form of dress and in their appearance. All right? You don't have to have them with their clothes off to know whether you're looking at a male or a female. That's just the way it's been for a long time. And sometimes you don't know what you got till it's gone, right? Sometimes things are so old that there was a reason for it that you don't even know about anymore. But whatever the reason is, that's the way it's been going for a really long time. Transgender, or the transgender agenda, seeks to overturn this deep, ancient human convention. And no, it is no longer the case. And they want to make it increasingly so, and they want to make it legally so. And it will, if confused people get into this, it may make it even more and more and more. But we are on the verge of a very small group of people trying to push an agenda where we are going to, they seek to overturn thousands and thousands of years of human convention. And please don't tell me about, in the middle of nowhere, there's this tribe, and on Wednesdays during the rainy season, the men dress like women and the women dress like men, and there's some whale someplace, and during their mating season, sometimes the male whales act like, don't tell me about this stuff. I'm talking about, with birds. All right. I've got a couple of cardinals. It's a couple. It's a male and a female cardinal. They've been summering in my backyard for probably 5-6 years at least. Okay. I even know their sound. I can tell they're out there when I'm not even in my yard. I got my window open and my door open in my kitchen. I can hear it. Okay. I know their chirps. And there's a woman and there's a man, and you can see what they look like. The male is all red. The woman is much more subdued. She's gray and got a little bit of red in there too. And, like that. It's not just a human thing. Okay. It's a trans species thing where from sight you can tell. Now, is that oppressive? Is that wrong? Is that, I don't know where it came from, but there it is. And it's not just humans. And it's been there for a very long time. Now we seek to overturn that. All right? And that has implications. That has consequences. It's not just a harmless, playful thing. Okay? And let me give you an example. And I'd like somebody to think about this. Mothers, fathers, kids, anybody listening, please think about what I'm about to say and call me and give me your opinion. All right? Sometimes analogy helps us sort things through. Some very famous human beings were fond of using analogy. Some very holy beings were using analogy to try to sort through complicated issues. I'm not putting myself on that level whatsoever, but I'm just saying it's a known technique, respected technique. So I'm going to give you a story, an analogy, okay? So you are the parent of some kids, and the neighbor, a new neighbor family moves in next door to you, all right? And, they've got kids too. And, they want to have a little welcome party, or they want to have an open house and invite the neighbors over. So you go over there, and it's the parent, the kids. And then, after a while, the kids go home and the parents stay, and there's drinks and there's barbecue or whatever, and you get to know everybody and blah, blah, blah. And, you're introducing yourselves, you're talking. And in a moment of candor, the parents of this new family who've moved in next door to you confide something in you. And they explain to you their 16-year-old daughter, Amy, is really a transgender boy. All right? And they're so proud of him, and they're encouraging him to go with his feelings and express himself any way he wants, because what he feels is what's right. And he wants to be a girl. So he's Amy, and he dresses like Amy, and he puts on makeup and everything. A 16-year-old girl next door, kid. And you kind of notice, this cute little girl, you're like, actually a little bit, maybe going a little excessive with the makeup or something. All right, well, fine. Now, a couple months later, you notice that your 16-year-old son, John, is spending a lot of time with their 16-year-old son, Amy. But John's not in on it. John doesn't understand that Amy is a boy. What are you going to do? What are you supposed to do as a parent in that situation? Amy's not telling. Amy's parents are not telling. In fact, Amy's doing everything. Amy's acting like a 16-year-old girl who has a fancy for a 16-year-old boy and is trying to be coquettish, perhaps, and attracting. What are you supposed to do in this new normal, in this new world? Are you supposed to just take it all in stride and not say anything to your son? Let him have his heart broken to bits if he ever finds out what's going on, and his faith in the world and adults and everybody smashed to pieces because he was deceived? Now, I assume in such cases, some people would say straight up, hey, as soon as you meet him, this is who I am, and don't have any. But I also assume some people wouldn't do that. You certainly can't do it from a distance. And either way, you're the parent. You don't know whether that conversation has taken place, have you? Until you go into it. And how do you go into it? And what's your kid going to tell you? Oh, yeah, I know, it's fine. I'm just, maybe I'll just turn gay, if I really like this person. Or, what if the kid says, oh, my goodness, I didn't know. Thanks for telling me. Oh, my goodness, I'm really liking this, what I thought was a girl, Amy. And then what? What are you supposed to say? Well, that's okay, John. Go with your feelings, and, love will find a way and work it out, Everybody was wrong. For thousands and thousands of years of human evolution, the birds, the bees, everybody's wrong. This is the new, now we're finally getting all of this straightened out. And you know what? Go with it. Whatever you want to do, whatever you feel, Isn't love hard enough? Sometimes, even for adults, not to mention, teenagers going through puberty. How many people know or have been in the situation where someone has fallen in love with somebody who doesn't love them back? It could be very painful. It could be suicidal in some cases. All right? In this case, not only whether somebody loves them back is immaterial, there's no basis for a male and female relationship. Unless you want to go and make believe, this is an issue. What would you do if you were John's parent? How would you handle it? How would you supposed to be able to handle it? John's seen Amy go into the girls' room in high school. Nobody told John. Is this cruel to tell John the truth? Is this transphobic to tell John the truth? Your son, John, the 16-year-old? Is that what that is? Maintain the lie? Maintain the passing at all costs? How do you handle this? Now, if all this time, the vast majority of human beings have agreed to this convention of telegraphing your chromosomes by your appearance. Why shouldn't transgender people go along with that and telegraph in some way by their appearance that they're actually transgender? Because it's totally upside down. Or that would not work because it would be truthful. I don't know. You tell me, what do you think? Am I being bigoted? Transphobic? I'm not afraid of people who are going through this transgender experience, but I am concerned about its implications if we start to follow this thing through. And there's laws being passed now about bathrooms and where you're going to be able to go to the bathroom. INN report right back.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Good friends, welcome back. Tom Kiley, INN World Report Radio. I'm talking about reality shift, the reality shift tonight as it gets bigger and bigger and crazier and crazier. And this particular aspect of it, because it's in the news lately, that the transgender agenda is being so pushed to the point now where the logical conclusions of this thing are being forced into the public consciousness. And we're being told now that, men's rooms and women's rooms don't mean anything anymore. I mean, why do we even bother? Why shouldn't there just be one bathroom? Now, were we wrong to have men's and women's rooms all along? Ladies, give me a ring. Do you feel like it's unnecessary? Guys, give me a ring. As a guy, I could tell you, I notice one thing when I'm at the movies, after the show, after you eat all that popcorn and you have one of them big gulps or something, the lines in the women's room are a lot longer than they are in the men's room. And I expect it's got something to do with, physiology and, how easy it is to use the restroom when you're a male or a female. But is nature wrong? Is the propensity in human beings to telegraph their chromosomes by visual appearance, be it dress or, haircuts, makeup, lack of makeup, physical body attributes, muscles, legs, feet. Is that wrong? I mean, the birds in my backyard do it, and without even trying, I know who the female cardinal is and who the male cardinal is, no problem. Are they wrong? Has human society been wrong all this time? That's what we're talking about here. And it's just, I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense. And the solution for suffering is not always going along with the suffering person's idea of how they can escape their suffering, because they can't escape their suffering. If their suffering is based on the fact that they disagree with their body, they can't escape it. They cannot change every chromosome in their body. They can have as much surgery as they want. They can have as much, hormone therapy as they want, which is very painful, I'm told, and also leads to incredible health complications. But they can't get in there and change them chromosomes. So I don't buy that the solution is for me to say something that's not true. I can say, you know what? I know that you feel like you're in the wrong body. I understand that, and I respect that that's the truth, and that's a fact. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Okay? And I understand that, and I respect that that's a reality for you. And it's a reality for me, but to make it an unreality for me is not right. To say that it's not true, that because that your sex is not based on a physical attribute at a very low level, your chromosomes, and rather on your opinion, that's not correct. It's just wrong. And I don't mean to belittle anybody who's going through this acute suffering. Certainly, if anyone who's going through it or is listening, give me a call. Give me a call. Am I addressing this in a disrespectful manner? It's not my intent. Give me some feedback. Anybody who's listening, a mother, a father, Tell me. Am I being dishonest? Am I being disrespectful? Am I being hurtful? I'm trying to just be truthful. That's all. And being truthful is the enemy nowadays on so many levels, and now on this one. Where is there a real debate about this? Debate is the enemy. There's so many things we're not allowed to talk about. Forbidden subjects, and now this is becoming one of them. And if you disagree with the lie, there's even a phony term for you called transphobic. Now, there may really be some people who are transphobic, but just because you disagree with this does not mean that you're one of them. All right? I am phobic of, of spreading a lie across humanity, particularly one that's going to affect children. I have fear about that. I think it's wrong. And just because you have fear about something doesn't mean it's wrong. You should have fear about certain things, right? What if I were to tell you, friends, I am a billionaire. I'm a billionaire trapped in a poor person's body. Put a financial price tag on it, and this problem goes away immediately, okay? And the problem is every time I go into the bank, they don't recognize that I am a billionaire. I've even dressed like one. I've even, changed my name to sound like one. I bought expensive watches and I wear them and rings and jewelry and, I talk like a big shot, everything else. I try to do my best to look like one. But when I go in there, they won't cash my check for $1 million. They are a billionaire phobic. Now, that sounds like I'm using ridicule. I'm not. Okay? I'm not. I'm trying to make a point that this is a very, very selective application of, whether or not you're going to allow somebody who you're going to respect what somebody feels about themselves. You put a price, you put money on it. This all goes right out the window, doesn't it? How about that? Right out the window. No, but if it's something about something equally untrue, I feel like I'm a billionaire. Where's my billions of dollars? Damn it, I'm going to the bank. I want a law passed. Well, it's different. Why is it different? Because you really don't have $1 billion. Yeah, that's true. And you know what? You really don't have Y chromosomes either. Really, truthfully, honestly. That's the truth. So, I don't know. 512-646-1984. Please call me up. Have I offended anybody? It's not my intention. I'm talking about the truth. Do I sound like I am transphobic, that I should just really embrace all of this stuff because there's nothing to be concerned about? And I have a unwarranted concern? No. No. I have a deep concern. I need somebody to explain to me why the human race has been wrong all this time, why the birds in my backyard are wrong. The poor birds. If there's such a thing as a bird being trapped, a female bird being trapped in a male's body, there's nothing they can do about it. They cannot change their feathers. They cannot change the color of their feathers. They can't change their size. They can't change whatever. The male cardinal is red, red, in my backyard, and the female is much more subdued. They don't have a choice. If they even have any kind of confusion in the first place. And yeah, I'm sure National Geographic can find some species of something somewhere that, if there's a drought or whatever, the males act like females and the females act like males. No, these are some kind of exceptions. By the way, the anthropologist Desmond Morris, who I used to read as a kid, he wrote a fascinating book called The Naked Ape, and then he followed it up with an even better book, I think, called The Human Zoo. Pretty old stuff from the 1960s. He claimed that, this stuff doesn't happen in nature, but it does happen to animals who are caged in a zoo. Stuff like this. Murder, all the stuff that we see, human society we feel is wrong. It doesn't happen in nature, but when animals are caged up in a zoo, a lot of this stuff happens. And he claimed homosexuality was one of them. So he wrote the preface to this book saying, clearly we don't live in the human jungle, we live in the human zoo. So I don't know. But nobody's calling. 512-646-1984. What's the matter? You all afraid of chiming in on this? Afraid you might sound transphobic? I'm relying on all of you. If somebody ever comes after me, you all know me. I've been on the air here for 8 years. You let me know. Am I being disrespectful? It's not my intent. Call 512-646-1984.
sunglasses. In San Diego, law enforcement agents are using video surveillance cameras and facial recognition to pick faces out of crowds. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, back with details in a moment.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Privacy-invading technologies are coming online faster than you can scream Big Brother, and one California company called Face First tops my spooky list. Face First has developed scanners that can sweep a crowd from 100 feet away to record every face and feed those images into a database. People are identified in under a second. Already deployed in Panama, Face First is now being tested on San Diego streets. Imagine the feds, drones, marketers, and stalkers all scanning our faces and identifying us as we walk down the street. Yikes, I'm buying a floppy hat and some sunglasses. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
.com.
Live Free Speech Radio, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Something wrong! Man, I smell something wrong. Something wrong! I don't think I'll be around here.
Junior Watson, and that's why I picked this music and it's a subject tonight. Something's wrong, no question about it. Now listen, I hope that I have come across respectfully, because that is my intention. All right, I'm trying to be informative. I'm trying to be imaginative. I'm trying to be speaking in a way that keeps your interest. So I have to modulate what I say and use emphasis and stuff. But it is absolutely not my intention to ridicule people or hurt their feelings or anything else. But when you're dealing with absurdity, sometimes you have to point it out, I feel. Anyhow, Gerald is calling. You could be next. 512-646-1984. Please give me a call. I'm relying on you folks. I always do. I love this crowd. I love doing this show. And I rely on your feedback. So anyhow, let's talk with Gerald. Good evening, Gerald. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing tonight, Tom?
Pretty good. I wanted to speak about what I call the reality shift tonight in this particular aspect of it. How is it coming across?
Well, you sound like you're, I'm having the same exact type of response as you are. I've got issues with it because of it just seems like crazy that with the problems that we have in this world right now that this is something that we're like thinking is of high importance. Also the other thing that I really don't like about it is the kind of effect it will have on children.
Absolutely.
I think it's very confusing. The world's confusing enough. Life can be hard enough, but it just complicates things much further, and it could intimidate, scare certain children, and so on and so forth.
Well, I think that's that's I think the goal of the people who are driving this thing. I don't think that the affected people maybe have that in mind. Maybe some of them do. I doubt it. But the people who are, society doesn't change because the little people want it to change. Elites change society. It's the high priests. It's the high court. It's the king. It's the people at the top who allow things to happen or not. Sometimes they get overwhelmed. I don't see the people driving this, number one. Number two, I see the people being misled into thinking they're the only ones who think this is wrong. And that's not true either. I think the vast majority of people think this is wrong.
Yeah, well, it's just across the board the way they do everything. But, it wasn't the majority of us that wanted to go in Iraq in 2003. It was a select few, and they just made it look like there was overwhelming support.
And they did it with a lie. Weapons of mass destruction. Because the goodness of people had to be overturned, had to be defeated.
Yeah, and I remember that was there was record-breaking protests. I was actually in London at the time, and I was there for the protest, and there was up to 400,000 people in the streets. It was crazy. They had
a couple of really, really big ones. I thought one of them was over 1 million people. Here in New York, we had 500,000 people twice. And
I think they had over 1 million in Barcelona or something.
Yeah.
But there was I remember there was 50,000 people protesting in Tel Aviv.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you a different. And I used to live in Israel, and I can promise you that Israel's just like the United States. The people aren't the same thing as the government.
Tell me, it's my impression actually that there's a much more spirited debate in Israel about Israel and about Zionism and about a lot of things than there is here.
Oh.
Did you get that sense?
Yeah, I lived there for a little while, and then I've gone back twice for 2 weeks at a time. And, the last time I went was 2003, and it was with this group. There was about 60 of us from all over the world. It was kind of this thing called the Great Experiment, and they had it at Neve Shalom, Neve Shalom is about 40 miles outside of Jerusalem, and it's a village where it's nothing but half of it is Palestinian or Islamic, and the other half are Jewish and conservative. But they all live together in a community. It's like a couple hundred people. And people cycle in and cycle out, but the whole purpose of the community is to show that they can live side by side and be totally okay. And there's a lot more of that going on. I was at one point in time, I was part of a group. I was sat in on a group that was children's people who had been killed by suicide bombers, like their parents. These are young teenagers, and then the Jewish teenagers were, the Islamic teenagers were people who'd been killed by Israeli soldiers. And they're getting together trying to work it out. And so it's you don't ever really hear or see about a lot of that stuff.
No, you don't. And that's the way Jews and Palestinians lived together before the Zionists came. I have read stories about how they lived together with each other in peace, in harmony, even to the point where there's been cases where a Jewish mother died with an infant and a Palestinian mother breastfed that child. That Jewish child. I've heard stories even like that before the Zionists came and started to massacre people in these villages to drive them out. But thank you for calling, Gerald. I'd love to talk with you a little more, but Nancy's on the line. Do you want to keep talking a little bit, or you want to call back next time?
No, I'm actually I'm driving. I'm about to be home in about 2 minutes. But
okay,
I listen to your show all the time, as much as I can. Sometimes it comes on at 8 o'clock down here in Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I'm not in the car and.
Well, it does in Austin. It should be running, I would think, from 6 to 8. So, and there's always the archives at logosradionetwork.com.
Right. Yeah, I need to start getting into the archives because I started now using my iPhone to during the day when I'm working. I work alone a lot, so I listen to Alice Jones, Joyce Riley.
There you go.
And Ben Fuchs.
Well, if you haven't, Gerald, because sometimes people's names are different on the air than they are in the email, send me an email and I can point out some shows you might be interested in. 512-646-1984 is the number, but to reach me on email, everybody, you should just send me an email, info@innradio.com.
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you, sir, and please call back soon.
All right. Have a great
All right. Let's go to Nancy, and if you'd like to join us, we still have a whole nother segment left in the show, 512-646-1984. Hello, Nancy.
Hi.
Thank you for calling. Thank you for listening.
Yes. Well, thank you. Mine is not nearly as deep as the previous caller, but I am impressed by how big a protest we can have without them paying any attention if they choose not to.
How? What's that? How big a what?
How we can have the biggest protest and they pay no attention. They give it no attention whatsoever.
No question. I was at both of the New York City protests, the one before, I think, the Iraq War and the one after it started. There was 500,000 people at least at each one. And the New York Times reported tens of thousands of people came. Right in its own hometown. And then Fox News, to show you the protest, they had a camera up on the 59th Street Bridge pointing straight down. So you saw the people walking by under it. It looked like it was nothing. But if you took that same camera and turned it up First Avenue, you would have seen as far as the eye could see people,
Yeah. Here in Austin in 2003, we had a protest at the beginning of the war and took up the whole street and in the bridge, and they came out and pepper sprayed everybody.
Oh, boy.
And we ran home and turned on the news, and there was nothing.
Yeah. Did you hear Scott Ritter on the show last Thursday?
No, I didn't.
It'll be in the archive soon, I suspect. But Scott Ritter was the guy who blew the whistle and said there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He was the UN weapons inspectors of a Marine Corps major, and he blew the whistle before the invasion. We had him on INN and tried to tell everybody, and they silenced him. So that was interesting.
People don't want to fight each other. They figured out ways to get us to fight for their money. It's not that much different than Michael Vick, I guess, except that we sign up.
Well, you're right. People are people. People are decent, and that's why they have to be lied into going to war and scared and ginned up to go to war,
True.
I was a kid in the Army in West Berlin. I was nose to nose with drafted Russian kids my own age, and they were fine. Mm. I had no problem with them. And you know what? When there was nobody around, when the bosses weren't around, when the sergeants and the officers were not around, we actually traded with each other. All right? I got Russian Army belts for me and my friends. They wanted American cigarettes and stuff.
Yeah, they fight us for money.
Yeah. So tell me, have you been listening to what I was trying to say about the transgender agenda?
The agenda. Yes, I had a gay guy roommate for like 2 years. I still don't want guys in the women's room. I'm sorry, I don't want men in the ladies' room. I'm a grown woman, but I sure don't want them in there with little girls. And I don't want to have to walk past people standing in a urinal. And it just doesn't sound right to me. And I'm not a prejudiced person, but I still don't want.
Well, hold on. We'll be right back with Nancy right after this.
Easy.
All right, good friends. Welcome back. Tom Cali, INET World Report Radio. Nancy's on the line. We're going to go right back to Nancy. You can be next. But I have some breaking news for you. Apparently, the primary predictions are coming in based on, I suppose, the exit polls and stuff. Donald Trump, 67% in Pennsylvania. 67%. Hillary Clinton, 59%. Sanders, 39%. Cruz, 17% in Pennsylvania. Kasich, 13% on CNN there. Connecticut, I believe, is projected for Trump. And Rhode Island, 66% Donald Trump, 59% for Hillary Clinton. So that's what's going on in this here Tuesday night. Let's go back to Nancy, but you could be next, 512-646-1984. Hi, Nancy, are you there?
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see what they do with the delegates now.
He's probably not going to get that many. Interestingly, Nancy, I don't know if you've been listening to the show on the nights where I've discussed this, but gay women are not in favor of this transgender agenda, at least some of them anyway.
I doubt if gay men are either. You really
Maybe not. I don't know. But I've seen, there's a famous music festival that was held in Michigan. It was like the lesbian version of Woodstock, or the women's version of Woodstock. Most of the women there, I am told, were gay, but I have women friends who are not gay who used to like to go there. And it was just a celebration of female energy in the woods for a week, and music and, traditional crafts and all kinds of stuff, healing things, alternative medicine, great gathering. They were very, very strict, though. It was for women only. Okay. They've been doing this for 40 years. Women couldn't even bring their male children. Okay. And they shut it down. Last year was the last year because of the transgender agenda, that they will not go along with somebody who says they're a woman when they're not, coming into their festival. And they rather, after 40 years, they shut it down. How about that?
Well, it's obviously a psyop because it's such a small percentage of the population that we're talking about, especially if you compare it to gays and lesbians. There's, much larger percentage down. But I think it's about trans. It's about transnational. It's about transhuman. It's about transsexual. It's all about trans, I think. I think that's the...
It has a lot to do with it. And I also think that, yes, it's a very relatively small percentage of the population that is afflicted with this problem. Okay. And I think it's absolutely fair to say that, because it is a problem. Okay. I don't think any person going through that would tell you it's not a problem. It's a problem. Okay. But the amount of people who are not directly experiencing that, who are going along with it, seems to be pretty large. Mostly young people, mostly leftists or liberals. I'm in Brooklyn here, and that is, to me, where the real psyop is to see if you can, how many children, young people, college people, can you get to say the sky is green?
Well, I agree. I think they're transforming society in whatever, their plan is, that they're never going to tell us. And that people are so afraid of being offensive to anyone that they'll, I don't know. I just don't want dudes in the ladies' room, and I don't think it makes me prejudiced. And
you're not alone. I think the vast majority of people feel that way. And also, I don't want dudes on the girls' softball team. That should be for girls.
It's not fair.
It's not right. It should be for women. Otherwise, why do we have, male and female sports in the first place? Because the guys will dominate, all right, on a lot of the sports, generally speaking,
But Well, and it really doesn't jibe with the acceptance of Muslim culture, because they'll kill gay people and they'll stone women to death, and they believe in female mutilation and genital mutilation and all kinds of things that I don't believe we have to accept as that's a valid part of their culture. And
well, some of that happened in this culture too. A while back, and I think.
Well, they still do guys. They still do male genital mutilation for most of the guys born in the United States.
That's right. That's a blood thing from, way back. And I don't know that the female genital mutilation is particularly an Islamic thing. I believe that is more of a sort of an African thing that predates Islamic religion, but some of them have that. But then you're going to have people who are in control of media here in our part of the world who want you to be afraid and angry and loathe Islamic people, and they don't have any qualms to try to get us to believe that that's somehow based in the Islamic religion, which I don't believe it does. I think that practice predates Islam, right? Which is only, 1,200 years old? How old is Islam?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not as old as Christianity, which is not as old as Judaism. So I think it's about 1,200 years old, but I think some of these practices that are attributed to it predate it, so. But, we used to burn people at the stake too and stuff, and.
Apparently they killed 9 million women when they went after the witches, mainly herbalists and any kind of midwife and that kind of stuff, women who knew about healing. So,
interesting that you bring that up, Nancy, because I've been coming across some information lately about that as well. And I was talking about this great video that James Corbett made on the Corbett Report about the oil oligarchs and how they got petrochemicals and Rockefeller and Carnegie got into drugs. And they tried to convince doctors before, petrochemical drugs, it was herbalists in nature and that sort of thing. And they tried to get the best doctors to sell their snake oil. Literally, John D. Rockefeller's father was literally a snake oil salesman, okay? And he deceived people. Absolutely, literally was the case. That's where the Rockefellers came from, okay? And when doctors wouldn't go along with them, Carnegie and Rockefeller got together with their millions and millions of dollars and made doctors and made universities and made institutions. And whereas, back in their day, the majority of schools were naturopathic and herbal based and so forth. Now there's only, I think, maybe one left in the country.
They funded the schools and took charge of the licensing.
And the textbooks and everything else. And the fellowships for the teachers and the professors and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Well, and the woman who's leaving the FDA now, Margaret Hamburg, her parents were both directors of the American Eugenics Society. And I just found out this week that before she became head of the FDA, she worked for the biggest silver amalgam manufacturer in the world.
Oh, boy.
The mercury fillings people.
Yeah.
It kind of explains why there's no dentists in jail for putting mercury in our mouths, because they still do it.
I had mine removed. Did you get your silver taken out yet?
Yes. But how much more in your face can you get than in your face?
No, that's absolutely true. And, you can't, the reason they do it is because you can't put a patent on a natural substance.
Right.
Yeah.
And because it works and they don't.
Well, yeah, then they wouldn't be able to sell their snake oil anymore.
Great show. And I do think there's a bullying going on where they're bullying everyone into feeling like they're not progressive enough if they think there's a difference between boys and girls.
And also, the bullying is historically back and forth. There are also people who react to these people with this particular type of suffering in a very poor way. Sometimes they're killed. Sometimes transgendered people who are trying to pass, it's a dangerous thing. And they do it to people who kill them. It's rare, but it happens. Okay? And that's not right either.
If somebody looks like a woman and goes into the woman's room, nobody's going to say anything to them or even know.
Yeah.
So I just don't know why it's a problem. I mean, I'm sure it is for some people, but if you look like a girl and you go in the women's room and you use a stall, it's not like then nobody's even going to notice it.
Well, I guess if you're in a school and you grew up with somebody that used to be a boy and now is dressed up like a girl, and that what's going on, I guess you feel funny. But let me ask you, Nancy, since you bring it up, should we abolish all these rules? Has human society been wrong for having a men's room and a women's room all this time? If nobody's going to know if you go in a stall? Good question, right? In France, when I was in Paris back in the 70s, I've been there since several times. You could go into bathrooms there where, it was the men and the women in the same room, I guess.
What were the rules for outhouses? What are the, I don't know. I don't know the history of bathrooms. Yeah. So I don't know, but I know that I feel uncomfortable, and I think I'm, about as open to different various lifestyles and choices as anybody can be, and I still don't want guys in the ladies' room, and I don't want to go in the men's room and walk by a bunch of guys standing there at the urinal.
Did you hear the hypothetical I posed? What if you had a son who you saw getting infatuated with what he thought was a girl who lived next door who was actually a trans boy? Would you intervene? Would you say anything, or would you let your son find out the hard way?
Oh, no, I think you should tell somebody. I think the other person should tell them, and if they don't, maybe you do it like you do with friends, where you go to them and you say, look, if you don't tell, I'm going to.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, Nancy, you've got the last word on tonight's show. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks for calling. I believe you've called before, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Love your show. Bye.
Thanks a lot. All right, good friends. That does it for tonight. I'm going to go right to the... Deb, did you want to say something? We got about 30 seconds. I'm sorry.
Just quickly about this nobody would ever know thing. You can see through where the door meets the walls and the stalls, and peeping Toms go in there. And women often change clothes in the bathroom without going into a stall. So no, I don't buy this thing about, well, no one would ever know. Who cares? Just let them do it.
Well, why do we have them in the first place?
Exactly.
If it's not such a problem?
Exactly.
So, I think people deserve that level of privacy, and certainly, that's what I would want to see for my children. All right, friends, we'll be back.